Right, what have I got today? Boosh, it is a light from a company I've never heard of. This is from UrFlamp, and I mentioned this in the thoughts video. If you want to watch the thoughts video, it's up there. So it's me walking and talking and testing it, and then at the end I nearly get hit by a car, so that's a bit of fun. Right, get rid of that. Boosh, that gets rid of that. Okay, so this is UrFlamp. Now, again, I did mention in the first video that I did on this, on my initial thoughts, I thought UrFlamp was the name of a soccer player from, I don't know, the Netherlands or something like that. It isn't. It is a genuine manufacturer of lights, and I think they are based in, just to prove it there, they are based in Shenzhen there, so in China. Pretty decent. I've enjoyed using it, so here are my proper thoughts in a full review. So this is the V6. It's called the V6. It was called a Night Watchman on some other literature that I got, but the full genuine name, and I've checked it on their website, is the UrFlamp V6. So it is an EDC light. Pretty decent. It's an 18650, so I tested it with a load of other 18650 lights. So 18650 is the cell type. Here's the flat top, if I can get it out the damn thing there. So that's about the size of the cell. So it's not like the larger 21700s. So it's a standard, well, I say standard lithium ion cell anyway, that most flashaholics will use. This just happens to be a flat top. So this comes with a cell in it, so you get that within the price. It's about sort of, well, I mean, the last time I looked, it was about sort of just about 30 bucks ish, something like that. So it's within that sort of general range. Now I've put everything back in the box, so I'll take this out now. So obviously I have tested it, so there's the box. I'll quickly show you that. 1.5 meter drop rating and IP68. I'll go over what that means. 158 maximum runtime. That is not obviously not on 1300, but we'll go over what they are, and then you've got your meters, throw, and all that, and then there's your weight with the cell that they have included. And there's not a lot else on there other than some runtimes and some basics. There, strobe and SOS is included. Right, get rid of that. Boring. I didn't really bother reading this because I can't be bothered, but it's there if you want it. So I'll quickly show you. It unfolds to a rather big ensemble there, so there you go. If you want to have a read of that, there you go. I've done it in 4K there. Be my guest. But here is the, get that in the bin there. Get that out of my face, right? Get rid of that as well, right? So here's what you get. You do get a spare O-ring, a very, very small O-ring, which, you know, doesn't fill me with a lot of hope, but you do get a spare. I would have liked to have seen two spares, and certainly been bigger than this, but at least they've included it. So little tiny bonus point for them there. Lanyard here, nice and big, look, gets over my wrist, no problem. It does have a cinch, but it is not a spring-loaded cinch, so that will work. Look there, so I've done that there. It works its way free, so that's a little bit unfortunate. So it's an okay lanyard. I never use them, but if you do need them, just bear that in mind. And let's do the strength test here. Feels okay. We'll do it on the finger until it hurts. Right, that genuinely hurts, just to prove that. You can see the dent there, the divot I've put in my finger. So perfectly solid. Yeah, decent. I'll give you a nice close-up look there. Yeah, decent material. But like I say, that is a standard cinch and not a spring-loaded one which will stay in position. But at least it's a big one, so get rid of that. That's a cable which I have tested. It is Type-C charging, and I'm so happy to see this. Lights are now, rather than including the Type A to C, they're all starting to include C to C, because C to C charging should be commonplace now, and I'll prove that that does work in a moment. So that I'll put that to one side there. Here's the light itself. They are saying compact. I would agree with them. If you look at something like the old S2 Plus from Convoy, a classic, look, it's slightly bigger, but then it's a slightly different setup. So, and bear in mind, this has no charging on board. Yes, you could argue, well, yeah, but this is older. It is older, but look, you can Type-C charge this. It has a battery level there, and that is where you charge it. But I'll show you that working in a moment. So let's get a nice close look at this in 4K. So one of the things I did like about it, apart from the battery level indicator, which is pretty cool, and the head looks quite well made. It feels nice. It's well made. There's no creak. There's no, listen, nice and smooth when you're doing the threaded sections there. So no problems there. I quite like this instead of the standard knurling, which you get, which looks like that. You know, where they do like a crosshatch. That's your standard knurling, which is okay. This is slightly less aggressive, but it looks nice. I think that looks quite nice. It looks like, I don't know, like a barber's pole or something, but it looks like it's been machined quite nicely. And you do get a clip. It's not a deep carry, so a deep carry would come all the way up. This isn't a deep carry, but it's semi-reversible, so you can use it normal like that. It's okay. I would say it's average. And then you can reversible there. So, okay, there's added features you can use that for. So the head does not come off, but the tail does, and that's how you access the battery. So let's show you that now. So it's an 18650 cell. It's only a 2600 though that they give you. So I'll take that out. Before I show you that, I want to give you a nice close look at the workmanship here. So average, kind of average down there, and the spring, decent. It's quite a thick one. It's not like a cheap one. They haven't cheaped out on that. Sensible looking threads. Workmanship looks okay. And then down the bottom you have another spring. I'm glad to say spring top and bottom, and by virtue of that, even though they have given you a button top, you can use a flat top, and it does work, and I'll just prove that. So look, this is a standard flat top there, 18650. So I'll run that and I'll do the shake test. I like to prove that. So yes, it does run, and watch. Right, that's as much as I can shake that. It still works. So yes, you can use flat tops and button tops, not a problem. Right, here's the cell that they give you. So looking at this, you will see it is only a 2600 milliamp hours. I would like to have seen bigger. There's 3000 and 3500 on some of the night cores now, so that's a little bit of a disappointment. I'm going to have to knock a mark off for that, but at least you get a cell with it within the price. So it's not free, because obviously you're paying for it, but it's in there. And they have put a bit of grease on here, so nice to see. So pop that on, and again, nice, well made, feels nice. Okay, you can charge this by USB. So if you open this flap, I shall just show you. So we'll try on this one without using their cable. Let's see what happens here. It should charge, because I have used this multiple times. There, so you see that charging there? And as you can see, it's only going out 1 watt there, which is kind of slow. Now, their figures, not mine, they are saying it will take at least 3 hours to fully charge, which seems a little bit long, bearing in mind it's only a 2600 cell. But okay, it's something to bear in mind. I would have liked to have seen that charging a bit faster, especially with some of the speeds now available when you go type C to C. And I'll show you with their cable, just to prove that that does work as well. I don't know what the purple signifies in here. Some of the colours on some of them, orange used to be fast charge, which is a proprietary thing. And then you had USB 3 was blue and all this, so I'm not really sure what purple is, but there you go. So we'll stick that in. And let's see if that works. It helps if you turn the damn thing on. There you go. Right, so plop this in. Now it did work. Let's see if it's working now. Get that plugged in. I can't get it charged on their own cable now. Right, they're going to lose a mark for that as well. Look, that is their own cable, and it was working. Have I not screwed that in properly? Let's try that again. No, so it doesn't charge on their own cable that they've sent me. Interesting. So let's try again with this cable. Let's see if that works. Yes, charging. And let's try with another cable. I'll go and get another one just to prove my point. Prove I'm not making this up. So here's another type C to C, exactly the same as that. Let's see if it charges. Immediately charges. Right, therefore that has stopped working. So that I used that once to show that it worked for myself. So let's try it now. So back to this, because you know I like to keep this honest. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and I'm going to show you that. Right, their own cable worked once for me, and that was nearly 2 weeks ago now. So I've tried it again, failed. So unfortunately I have to knock off another mark for that. So you've got to be honest on this channel, got to be honest. Right, not going to mark off for that. So you can, well, I've just proved by virtue of that or that one or this cable, if you use a normal cable that works, you will not have an issue and it will charge. But for me that didn't work, so knock a point off. So type C chargeable. Now the question I've got is, especially on camping lights and things like that, is can you charge it and use it at the same time? Well, let's I'm going to show this going on. So pop this in. Right, so it is charging. You can see it's barely putting out 1 watt there. So will it work? So let's try it. No, so it doesn't work whilst charging. So again, I'm going to knock a point off for that. So you know, it is a new company, and I accept that these things come with time, but there's something they need to change on a V2. So a lot of people might say, what is he talking about? Who uses that? I sometimes use that feature, especially if I'm out camping. You've only got your one light, you need to use it whilst you're charging, and that's just the way it goes. Okay, so get that out of the way. That's your charging. So, you know, talking of positives, you know, it is a 1.5 meter drop rating, which is pretty decent. If you drop that on concrete, it should be fine. And an IP68, so it's dust proof and waterproof. So, and they have confirmed that in their own literature. If you put this into up to 2 meters of water, it will remain waterproof, so the water isn't going to get in there. Just make sure, obviously, if you've done your charging, make sure that is seated properly, because if you don't do that, then they can't really, you know, you're not going to get that claimed IP68. But it fills me with a bit of confidence. And in regards to confidence, despite that, obviously, they are giving you a 5-year warranty with this. So theoretically, I should be able to say to UrFlamp now, I should be able to say, look, this worked once for me when I tested it and it hasn't worked since. I don't know if this has been crimped in passage of time or at the factory or whatever, but it's certainly not working. I'm going to do further tests on this, and I'll stick down below what I find, just in case it's some peculiarity that is my fault and not theirs. Okay, so I did some testing, just to let you know on the CRI and tint. So it's an Osram P9 in here. Now the Osram P9, if I remember rightly, was in a couple of Woburn things, and here's the Woburn C3. Quite a white light in regards to tint. A little bit harsh, but throwy and fun. So quite an impressive over 1000 lumens LED. I mean, this is a TIR setup, and I'll show you that later on in the comparisons. So an okay, decent, perfectly acceptable LED, and it's down the bottom there in a smooth reflector. So you are going to get a bit of throw with this. That's kind of what you go for when you get a smooth foiled reflector like that. So because of that, you get your, in fact, I'll show you here if I pull that back there. So you get your spot here, which is trying to project forward. That's what the smooth reflector is trying to attempt to do. And then your spill is the light directly from the LED, which gives you your fill-in. So if you're going hiking, it gives you your peripheral vision and all sorts of things like that. But that hot spot is that push that you're trying to get. So I tested this, and you can see there's a bit of tint shift there. You see along here, and it changes colours and stuff like that. But okay, that's not necessarily a problem on a small EDC light like this. CRI I tested. CRI just stands for Colour Rendering Index. So sunlight, when it hits the ground on Earth, on planet Earth, is 100%, and it looks rather nice. 70% is okay. And as it creeps down below 70%, it becomes more irritating. And if you get some really, really cheap LEDs that are something ridiculous like 60 and lower CRI, it looks horrific and you get a horrible color cast. Luckily, this is well over 70, so it's almost 72. I got an average of, well, it was 71.9 was the highest. So let's call that 80 on my rudimentary equipment. So a decent, nice CRI. It is not high CRI. So if you're looking for that, you need to look elsewhere, and there is no option for an emitter which will do that on this light. In regards to tint, it is very white, exactly as I said on the C3 from Woburn. Where is it? I've lost it. I have lost it actually. Right, it's somewhere over there. So in that regards, it came out the tint as 6,401. That's the figure I came to. So very white, not super harsh or anything like that, but just bear in mind that this is a white light. So if I compare that to something like the S2, which is a more, I'm going to say yellow, but it isn't. It's warmer tint. So you see how this is much warmer, whereas that is harsher and whiter. Generally, that will appear whiter, but it's less advantageous on reflective surfaces and wet surfaces and things like that. But as long as you're aware of that, most people, if they don't know and they're not a tint snob, that is not going to be an issue, but I'm just pointing that out. So let's go over the modes quickly. So pop them out the way, get them well out the way there. Right. So to use this, it's click on and click off. Dead simple. Now it's a half clicker as well. So if you half click it, you can cycle the modes. And it does have memory mode. So if I leave it on that mode, come out, go away and do something, come back, it will remember that. Obviously, that doesn't count for SOS and strobe, because you don't want it immediately coming onto strobe when you don't necessarily want strobe. Okay, so it's got that nice memory mode. So we'll go through this very quickly. So you've got Eco, which is 5 lumens. They are claiming you get 150 hours on the cell that they give you. Next one is low, 70 lumens. You get 35 hours. So already, look, that's quite an intense hotspot. So I'll pull back and I'll pull back. So here's the light here, top right there, you see. So I'm right at that distance there. So pretty nice hotspot. And the spill's okay there. So again, 70 lumens, 35 hours. Next one is medium, 410 lumens. They are saying you'll get 4 hours out of that one. And then if you go to its highest, bear in mind there will be a step down. There's its highest, that's 1300 lumens, very, very, now I can feel heat on that already from there, so very, very bright, very capable, and it will push out, and I've got plenty of footage later on in this video, and you can see exactly how effective that is. Bear in mind, on this absolute maximum, it can't dump the heat fast enough, so you are going to get a 30-second step. So what's a 30-second step? So for people who don't know, after 30 seconds, it's going to say, I'm getting too hot. I'm going to step down that lumen output to 500, and then I'm going to give you 2.5 hours of total runtime. So as soon as that 30 seconds is elapsed, boom, At least they're being honest about it. Yes, it's only 30 seconds, but they're being honest about it, and it's not going down to something ridiculous like 300, it's 500, which is perfectly usable. And if you did want to ramp that up again, you would simply turn it off and go back to the highest again, and then bang, you're back up again. You've got another 30 seconds. So you always have that option, as long as you can put up with the heat and it doesn't turn into like a branding iron or something like that for doing, you know, cattle on the prairies or something like that. Okay, so pros and cons, and I'll show you some of the lights that I tested it against. So I'll pop them there. Right, so pros. Tail stand, it will tail stand as long as it's a flat surface. This isn't particularly flat because there's like movable stuff under here, but it does, and I've tested it on flat stuff, marble, work surface, and I tested it on cardboard. I think I mentioned that in the first video that I did, the thoughts. But it's open enough where it's nice and comfortable. You can get your thumb in. You're not having to piano it where you've got to do it with the tip rather than do it at the side. I quite like that. So that does work, and it will tail stand if you need the ceiling bounce or whatever other capacities you need there. Feels well made. Battery level indicator is pretty cool. So if you watch here, when I turn it on, green. So I know that cell is in good nick. If it starts flashing green, it means it's going down towards 50% and below. Once that goes red, it's about sort of 40-30%. Once it flashes red, time to charge it immediately. So I love a battery sensor like that, where it tells you exactly what the cell's doing and you know exactly when you do and don't need to charge it up. I like that. You get the 5-year warranty, IP6, 8 and flat tops work. Right, let's go over some of the problems. Straight off, I'm going to add to the list. That ain't working, so I've got to, you know, I realise most people have a Type-C, but, you know, at least send one that works, so I'll knock a point off for that. Charging's possibly a bit slow. Bear in mind that's only a 2600 milliamp hour cell that they're giving you, which is, you know, I would have liked to have seen a 3000, at least something like a 30Q from Samsung, which I believe this to be under that wrap. So low cap cell there. Charging's a little bit slow. It won't work whilst it's charging, and the clip's just okay, it's average. So there's a few issues there, isn't there? But other than that, I can honestly say I've enjoyed carrying this. The surface on it is pretty good. It's kind of like the jet beams and what have you in the Clarises. And though, hang on, there you go, there's a high spot. Let me double check this then. That's the only one I've seen so far. Let me check this very carefully because I like to be honest here. What's that there? So there's a little nick there, you see it? See the high spot where the anodization's coming off. So there and there, that's the only two. Now I have genuinely carried this with keys, with other lights, banging around in pockets for almost 2 weeks now. So I think that's a fair assessment, and I'm very, very fair. I treat them very similar. So longevity, I can't answer that, but there are 2 high spots already. So is it worth adding that to the list? Most people don't care, but I'll add that to the list. So I'm going to give this, it's just getting a 7 out of 10. And I think that's fair. I mean, in comparison, it's a lot more lumens than the classic S2 from Convoy, but this is cheaper. You know, you're lucky to get 800 plus lumens out of that, but it is an orange peel reflector, so you get a much different beam profile. You get your hotspot there. If I go through the modes there you go. But you'll notice that it quickly peters out and amalgamates into the spill there quite nicely, even at a very close range. So someone might prefer that, but then obviously that is going to throw a lot further, and it is more lumens, 1300 versus, you know, at least 800. I tested it against the Osram P9 again, same emitter. This is Woburns' take on it though. You've got your Type-C charging there, and it is a tail clicker, exactly the same, kind of the same tint, very white. And I'll put that there, but it's a TIR, so it comes out very differently. It still has a bit of throw on it, but that's probably going to slightly beat it on throw, but you're going to get a similar output. I also tested it with the D1. Is this the D1? Yeah, the Woburn D1. Side button, and you can charge that, I believe, on the cell rather than having a thing here, but it ensures this is a genuine IP68. And again, it's quite a wide beam on that one. You can see, look at the width there. You've got it there and there, very wide. So if you're after a super wide one for hiking, that might be a better option. It's more compact look if you look at it, but then it would be because it hasn't got the gubbins on the outside to stick in a USB. You have to do it in the cell itself. Quite a nice clip on that one, look, nice and deep, almost a deep carry there, nice. And I tested it, I mean, I'll talk about that one in a second, but I also tested it with the Sofern SE32, which they are claiming about 2000 lumens. I don't think it possibly quite gets that, but very, very compact look, very, very compact. However, still chargeable. So how have they fitted that all into there? Well, they are using I believe it to be a Fresnel lens rather than a TIR. It looks like a TIR, but I think it is a Fresnel lens, so you save even more space. They really have made that compact. So if you need something super compact, there you go. There's your options. That's about as small as you are going to get. But still very bright. They are claiming something like 2000 lumens, which is very impressive. But a different beam profile. I'm not going to go over that in this video. And just for fun, I thought I'd test it against this. This is the Workhorse FC13S, I believe. And just to prove what cell it's using there you go. Same cell, 18650 again. However, obviously the cell they give you is bigger than the one that you get in the UrFlamp. But again, Type-C charging. But you are getting well over 2000 lumens on this one. Very, very bright. And you'll see that in the footage. So if you think, what does it look like, that one that I'm looking at there? So you've got something like the XHP 50 by Cray, I think, is in the middle there. So a much more robust, more powerful emitter. However, of course, the more powerful something is, the quicker it goes to the juice. But then you could say, yeah, but that's got a higher capacity cell in it. Yes, true. Okay, something to think about. Right, get them out of the way. This just gets a 7 from me. I would like to see them do a V2 because I think that it seems like an okay company. And again, they did send this to me and they said, TrailTrek, be honest, you must be honest. So that's exactly what I've done in this review. They don't get to see this, they don't get to edit it. I put in exactly what I think, and I always tell the truth on this channel. So it just gets a 7 out of 10 for me. It's kind of average, it's okay, but this is a good start for a newer company. I want to see them push more. They've gone the extra step by having the Type-C and then the C-to-C cable in, even though, yes, it didn't work in this instance. And they've got the battery level. They're starting to do all the right things. They just need to keep making those progressions. Kind of like how Workhorse did. When Workhorse started, it was a bit like, oh, not another company. And yet now I'm thinking, wow, they're doing a damn good job here and at a good price. So if they can keep up the good work, I'd like to see what else comes from the UrFlamp, because I have got other products. Anyway, 7 out of 10. Thank you for joining me. I've got plenty of outdoor footage, so go on. You go and have a look at it. Goodbye.